Alright guys, hello and welcome. This is the Siberian here and welcome to another modding tutorial. This is going to be my tutorial on how to create custom battle maps for Empire Total War. The reason I'm doing this one next is because there were no real resources online that I could find. I had to figure this out myself, so I figured I would get some sort of resource that people can reference and make cool maps. Because I feel like that's one area that Empire was really lacking, is multiplayer custom maps. So, without further ado, we're going to be using a series of programs to create this. I will link everything in the description of the video. If you need to download them, those should be safe links to get them. First thing we'll need is Rusted Pack File Manager. This is much better than the traditional pack file manager in my opinion. So that's first thing we'll need. I also use GIMP. If you have Photoshop, that will work as well. Even Paint will work for most things. So yeah, and then there'll be a few websites that we'll use as well, but I'll link those as we get to them. So without further ado, let's just jump right in with the first step. The very first thing you guys are going to want to do is open up your pack file manager and make sure the game selected is Empire. It should have the green logo there. And then you're just going to create a new my mod. So my mod, new my mod. And we're going to call this, for me, I'm just going to call it map tutorial. You can't have spaces in pack files, so if you need a space, just do an underscore like that and save it. So now we have an empty map, empty pack file, and I'm going to link in the description of the video a starting pack file that will give you guys all of the files in here that we can then edit. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to add it in from my previous map pack. We're going to use browse stat as our example. All right. So once you guys download the map pack tutorial that I will link, you should get a series of files that you can import that look like this. Alright, so the next thing we're gonna do is extract that to a location. So what I'm gonna do is go to my desktop, right click, new folder, and we're gonna call this, I'm gonna be for this tutorial doing the Battle of Helsingborg, which is a battle of the Great Northern War. So we're gonna rename our folder Helsingborg. And then back in the pack file manager, we're just gonna right click. Actually, let's right click on the whole thing. Go down to extract. 30 files extracted. They're gonna be in your My Mods folder. You go to My Mods, Empire, and then the name of your mod, and then these two files we're going to want to copy into our new mod folder. I guess the DB files don't really matter, it's just the battle train presets that we can get rid of the DB file. Yeah. Alright. We can rename this if you want. Helsingborg. Just to keep everything consistent. And in fact, I'm gonna, just to make it so I don't have to go through all the layers, I'm just gonna move that folder to the desktop. And there we have it. It opens right up. I don't know why. Alright, there we go. clean that up a little bit. So now we have a series of files with all sorts of different things. So we got blend maps, tree lists, color maps, all of this stuff. We'll go through what all these things mean in time, but first step will be our height map. So what I do is first I go online, type in the battle that I'm wanting to do a map of, and find a good map that I can pull up nice and big, so I can make sure that I know where the battle needs to take place. So if I find Helsingborg in maps, I know it's got to go out at least to, you know, kind of this much of an area. So we're going to go to maps, search it. Helsingborg, it should take me close. And this is where we want to compare. So looks like Brohoust, maybe that the name. Oh, that was a name I recognize. Anyways, so what I'm basically trying to do is find roughly, I want to know the location of the battle and how big of a battle map we're going to want. So something like this. We got the road coming out, splitting into a Y. Let's look at our maps. The road coming out. There's a cross. The hard part is there's more roads now than there was in the original battle, so. We can go along this road towards that town. Yeah, right there. That's that. You want to go kind of across towards. Yeah, so this looks like a rough area of our battle that we'll want. So what I do to generate a height map is I go to the city skyline map generator, which is a paradox game map generator, but it works pretty well for this. It's not perfect, but it works out, and it generates a square grid of height map. So what we want to do is just make sure we got everything we need. You can change all sorts of different things out here on it. So let's go. I just want to make sure we get everything we need in it. Let's go. Where is this town? I don't see it on Google Maps, so let's find a different. As you can see, this can be kind of a slow process, so. Make sure you find as good of a. Oh, there we go. That seems like most of the battlefield right there. So once you have this, you're gonna want to go over to this left side and download PNG height map. Click that and it should download a new height map for you. I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. See what terrain differences. Ooh, but it's not very obvious what the terrain differences are. So that's why we have GIMP. So I'm going to take my height map, and before I drag it into GIMP, I'm going to import the original height map. This is just so that GIMP automatically gets the settings from this first height map that we're importing, and so when you save on top of that it will be all the correct settings for compression and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and import my Fraustat height map. And then we're going to take our new download and plop that right on top. I'm going to go ahead and resize it to try and fit the layer better. Looks good. Good enough anyways. We'll go this one down. And do the size. Alright. Now just to make sure I don't have any hangover, I'm going to do layer to image size. Alright, so this is obviously much darker than my other map, if we compare the two. So what we're going to do is with our height map selected, go up to colors, exposure. Oh, wait, before you do that, I'm sorry. Go to image, precision, and do a 16-bit. We're going to want that smoother precision. It'll make everything simpler. All right, so we go back to colors, exposure. I'm just gonna drop black level a bit. Seems good. Okay. Now we can play around with brightness, contrast, whatever you need to get some differences in the colors of the terrain. So we can try, let's try that for now. Seems reasonable. This isn't super dark, and that we want that to be water. So if we download our reference map onto the desktop, we can move that over to GIMP and just compare where things will be. Oops. To transform it, I'm gonna want this one pretty dim, and we're gonna try and match some coastlines. Now I think Incorp was way up there. Another thing you can do is reference, so we have a rough height map, but height maps tend to not show rivers very well. So there's a couple ways we can add rivers. Is we can make it with a paintbrush the same color as another water area. Just get the size way down and just manually paint on where we think it would be. Of course, I'm gonna turn down the opacity even more. Now that's not showing up that much, so maybe a little bit darker. How height maps work, if you don't know, is the darker the area, the lower the elevation, and the lighter the area, the higher the elevation. So if you want to draw in water features, it's going to be dark. Oops, I drew on the wrong layer. That's easy to do. Now we're drawing on the right layer. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it looks, might be too dark, but we'll see. All right, that's a river. Where else do we have a river? Looks like this is a kind of a stream slash pondy area. We can get that in. Maybe we will put this a little bit lighter again. We'll go just to the last color. And we'll draw in some streams. Water features add a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and time lapse this as I mess around. You guys can figure out what works and what doesn't, but basically you got to create a height map. All right, once you have a rough iteration of the height map, we're gonna use a GIMP script to replicate it. So first, I'm gonna get rid of my reference layer. Gonna merge this down. And so we just have one layer left. We can go ahead and export that. So File, and then Export As. Make sure you're in the correct Helsingborg folder. And it's gonna be called height_map_0, and in the DDS file type. It should all be there because we imported the original file. So export, we want to replace the old one. You want to make sure you have no compression. It should all be correct, but just make sure your settings look like this. Hit export. Oh, I forgot to blur it. We'll see how it works in the 16-bit. Sometimes if it makes height maps awfully jagged, so you'll want to blur it, but we'll see. All right, next step is to use the script. So you go to, once you've installed the script, which if you don't know how to do it, do a quick Google search. It should walk you through. And I will link the scripts in the description as usual. Go to filters and then tile height map. You click on that and let GIMP run its script for a couple of seconds. And we should get 4 different height maps. So this is our original. Here's the next stage. So this will just be more in the distance. And we're going to want to export each one of these. File export as increasing numbers. So the first one was 0. This is height map 1. We follow this process. Then it'll be height map 2. Oops, I always right click. All right, export as height map 2. Export, replace, and height map 3. Export as. All right, and I am overwriting what was in that folder for Helsingborg for me, so that now if I go to that folder and I was to pull up those height maps, I will get the height maps I just created. All right, with that done and those files exported, we're gonna go ahead and give it a test out. So once you have imported the custom map that I provide as an example into your custom or your new pack file. Wow, sorry, words are hard. We're going to want to change some things. So first, we're going to want to right click and rename this folder into Helsingborg, or whatever your map is called. And then in our database tables, we're going to want to open that, go to battles, and pick up one of these names that isn't being used, so it's not, release isn't checked. So I'm going to find one. Let's go. Just making sure I was, some of these are my ones that I've messed with. So we'll go, River Indus is the one we'll do. You want to check release. You want to check multiplayer and single player. Start with a 3 versus 3. You can change this later to get it smaller. But this is the important part. When it says battle terrain presets river indus, we're going to want to change that river indus to our new folder name that we just created. So in this case, Helsingborg. Caps will matter, so if you capitalize, make sure it's capitalized here. All right, make sure this is a classic type, and then we have it ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and save that. We're gonna go back into our Helsingborg, and if you notice, because we haven't imported the files we created, there's still the old height maps that I have, that I provided you guys. So what we're gonna do is select all the height maps. I'm just holding control and clicking on them, and then hitting delete. We want to delete the old height maps. Then we come up here, right click, add a file. Don't add from pack file, add from file. From there we'll want to go to the desktop or wherever you saved your folder and open it up, Helsingborg, and find your height maps. 0, 1, 2, 3, and hit open. Now if we check them, not the settings, we should have all those new height maps ready to go. So with that, let's go ahead and save the pack file, hit install, make sure that our new mod is going to be in the thing. So what you do, you hit search, %app, %app data, hit enter, pulls up this file, go down to creative assembly, empire, scripts, user empire script.txt, open that up. These are all my mods that I've been working on. You want to type in mod, quote, and then whatever you called your custom pack file. So in this case, for me, it's map underscore tutorial. Oops, spelling does matter. Dot pack, end quote, and then a semicolon lets it know that that's the end of that one. Go to the next line. Save that. Close it out. Oops, close it out. And then we're gonna pull up Empire. Let's jump in. All right, once Empire is all loaded up, go ahead and go play battle, land, and find the 3v3 section. And then find the file you used. In this case, I did River Indus. So that's the one I replaced with my custom files. So we're gonna go ahead and select that. Just leave these settings however they are, it doesn't really matter. Continue. And because I don't know what the water levels are gonna be on this, I like to put just 1 unit per army. If the whole map is flooded, they won't be able to spawn and it'll crash the game or freeze it. So this is the test. Generally, custom maps take a bit longer to load, so you'll want to be aware of that. Alright, oh, it looks like we got some foggy settings because the last battle was set in winter. Let's see how our terrain is looking. So it looks like we don't have any water appearing, and you see the slight ripple. That's because I used the original pack file. That's because I exported height map 0 differently after or before I exported the rest of the height maps. Alright, so that's our river. So our river is definitely too dramatic. As you can see, it's very, very deep. And you can scroll through as long as you have the debug camera and see how far below your water level is. So let's see here. So we have some things we need to change. Funny seeing all the stuff from my other map be different here. All right, so we know some things we got to change. So we'll go ahead and exit out of that. We're gonna want to pull back up our height map, tile map, and I'm just gonna export the one that was in the tile map, the first tile map. Export as height map 0. So that should help with the ripple effect. Let's go ahead and replace, export. All right. Now we're gonna want to replace this one here. Add file into desktop. Helsingborg. Height map 0. All right, so we have our height map set or files, but we noticed that the water level was too low. So how we change water level is with our height map settings. So what these do, and you're gonna want to leave the world width and height the same unless you want to create a smaller map. But each time it goes up to the next height map settings. So from 0 to 1, it doubles. So if you see it's 2048, that's 4096, 8192, etc., etc. So you just want to be aware of that. You can leave the normalize on true, color blending false. You can mess with these settings, so they shouldn't affect too much. Scale here tells the map how extreme to make the height map. So in this case, if you wanted like a really abrupt terrain, you bump up that scale setting. If we did 50, every little increment of change in the black to white tones here on the height map would be a much larger increment of change, if that makes sense. So we'll leave this the same for now, but we noticed that the water level was too low. To increase the water level, it's actually you increase the negative. So let's go negative, I don't know, 19.7. And if you change either the bias or the scale, you're going to want to change it for all of them. So we'll go back through 19. I don't know why that one's 0.3 and the rest are 0.7. That could also contribute to our ripple. Let's try that 0.7. All right. Oops. Full size. Pack file. Save. Pack file. Install. Let's give that one a look. And just so you guys know, this is a lot of trial and error. So you just gotta put in the time. Let's jump into Empire and check it out. All right, here we are in the battlefield. So this is where we want it to be water. And you can see the water is still far too low. This is where the town would be, with our river going right next to it. And the rivers are too steep. They're too harsh. I want to be able to cross these more like streams. So we have some work to do. That's just a process of refining. You can also see there's a little ripple that can be messed with the height map settings. That means the settings on the higher numbered ones, the scale is too large, because the different settings of the height map, or the different settings for the height maps basically render how far away you are. So that when it's rendering way out here, it's rendering from that last setting file, and when it's rendering up close, it's rendering from the closest settings file, if that makes sense. So I won't put you guys through the whole process of refining the height map. That's something you guys will have to just experiment with. It can't really easily be taught. Just one thing I would say is if you don't want really stair-steppy or jagged edges on features, then make sure it's 16-bit before you start editing. And I think I did that with this, so you can see you get some nice smooth edges. But the only other thing I think we have time for this time is going to be a color map. So let's go ahead and hop out of Empire and get to that color map. Alright, so if your height map is controlling the shape of the terrain, the color map controls what the terrain will be colored as and look like, if that makes sense. So what I do usually is I go back to my city skyline generator without letting it move, and I change the map type to satellite. So you don't want it to move, that's for sure, or else you'll have to line everything up perfectly again. Alright, and then once you have that satellite done, you can download. There should be a download map image right here on the left. Go ahead and click on that. Take a second and it will download. And I'm just gonna drop that on my desktop. Actually, yeah, we'll drop it on the desktop. Oops, that's my scripts. We don't need that anymore. Download map 1. All right. Now we've got our color map pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and close that. And now we're going to import the color map that I will have provided you. So in your list of files, go ahead and find color map 0 and drop it into GIMP. Now we're going to want to drop our new file, this new map 1 PNG, onto our GIMP color map. And it's going to be oversized, so you're going to transform, and you're going to want to match it down to the size of the other color map. So, as good as you can. I'm sure there's probably an easier way than doing it manually, but whatever. Alright, transform that. Now we have a color map. One thing I do like to do is add in the height map just to make sure we have everything lined up. Go back to your height map that you've saved previously and drop it on top. Okay. And resize that to fit. Might take a little moving around to get it to fit perfectly, but that corner and then this corner should get both. All right. That's too far. There we go. Transform that. And just make sure your height map seems to be lining up with coastlines. Yeah. Looks pretty good. Yeah. So I decided not to include this landmass over here because it's just not needed in the map. So I'm going to go ahead, delete the height. Well, we're going to leave the height map there for reference for our little rivers. But I'm just going to turn off the visibility of it. So to get rid of this island, we're just going to clone stamp probably. So go to clone, hold Alt, no, hold Control, no. How do you do it? I forgot how to do it. Oh, because I have the height map selected. Select your map, hold Alt, hold Control, sorry. And just paint over this. It's not too big of a deal because this will all be underwater anyways, but better safe than sorry. Alright, get a nice blue tone. And what else I like to do is find a good river color blue, so kind of a paler blue. Get a paintbrush, kind of small, probably a little smaller. And this is where it's nice to have that height map because we're gonna paint it, the rivers that we have, blue. So make sure your color map is selected and just paint where your height map river is. It just makes the water not feel so muddy and dark, feel like a real river. So that's why I like to do it. Let's just look at the height map for a second. Okay, yeah, it does split there. Anyways, we'll time lapse this as I trace it out. Alright, we have a rough height or color map. The only other thing I tend to do is I like to trace over the roads with something a little wider, just because it's nice to have wide enough roads for you guys to walk on. So usually it's a good gray, brown color. And you can use the pen tool and trace them, or just trace them by hand. I'm not going to take the time to do that now, so we'll just leave it as is. What we're going to do is delete our height map and merge down our color map into the other color map. And then we will go File, Export. And this will be in the correct folder, and color map 0. Place that. Now you can, and this can just be a JPEG. You can do filters and color map script, which will give you a series of color maps so that everything is continuous and matching further out. But you don't really need to, so it's up to you guys. But it just makes everything blend a little bit. So I like to at least do one more. So select this in File, Export as Color Map 1. Everything further than that in the distance will be pretty far off, and it shouldn't matter too much. Alright, we'll go back to our map tutorial mod pack, and we're going to delete color map 1 and 0 and add in our new custom ones. Nope. There we go. And that's color map 1 and 0. Don't have to mess with the alphas, and the other color maps are just like a dark earthy tone with some patterns to break it up, so they should be fine for the distance. So with that, let's go ahead and save that and install and jump into Empire to check it out. Alright, here we are in the game. Let's see if any of our height maps worked. And we're still a little high on, we need the water further up, but that's okay, we'll get to that. As you can see, the map in the radar has updated with our color map that's based off of that. Our river, I still haven't corrected the heights of the rivers yet, so, but they have the nice blue in the bottom, which will make the water bluer. Yeah, so with just the color map and the height map, you guys should have a semi-working battlefield for just flat, no trees, no buildings. From here on out, we're gonna, in part 2, we're gonna get trees, buildings. Hopefully I can get everything done in part 2 for how to make a map. It might have to go to 3 parts because we have weather, trees, buildings, and all of that can be a tedious process. I still haven't fixed the ripple, which is just me needing to go back and investigate everything, all those files, and tweak things. So, but this is the start of how to do it. We have a long ways still to go to make a truly nice map. So, hang in there. But this is the start, guys. And I will be working on the next part of this tutorial soon. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Make sure to check out the links in the description for all the tools. And I will have the... What am I trying to say? I don't know what I was... Oh, if you have questions, join my Discord. I have a Empire Total War modding questions channel on there just for you guys. So if you have questions, make sure you ask them. Love to help get more people modding, more people making maps, even for my mod, which would be great. So anyways, I hope you guys are having a good one, and I will see you on the next video. Until then, bye.